Wanted to get this gent on because, man, I love his reporting, and his reporting about what went down in the meeting room Wednesday night when the NBA players all got together to discuss what the cancellation of playoff games that was brought on by the Milwaukee Bucks decision to do it, what it was going to mean and how to put it all back together, and the NBA, if they wanted to, in order to play. And the NBA and the NBA Players Association in just the last 15 minutes sent out a joint statement saying that they will play starting Saturday. Chris Haynes of Yahoo, his material is must read, especially his latest, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Chris?
I'm exhausted, man. I'm exhausted, man. It's been a whirlwind for us too, man.
I bet. How long have you been in the bubble, Chris?
I've been here since June 29th. I was one of two to get here early before everybody.
So you were one of the first in, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I got here a week, so that's a week before the players arrived. I came as part of Turner, just so they can have the league allowed ESPN to have a reporter on the ground early and Turner, so the two broadcast partners. So I came here early for Turner. Well,
and we just saw broadcast partners are going to be part of moving forward in terms of what the players told the NBA, I imagine, would be required to at least have them entertain a return and begin to entertain people who on Wednesday they thought to themselves, we don't want to do it. And so let's walk through all of this with your report. And for those who are maybe a little bit fresh to this was Wednesday night after the Bucks decided to not play. And the thing that kind of leapt at me from your article is this was not a unified decision to stop playing in the NBA from the players, right?
No, it wasn't at all. This was, I know boycott is being used, but really it wasn't that. A boycott is a organized plan of attack where everybody is in sync. And that wasn't the case. The Milwaukee Bucks actually intended to forfeit that game and take a loss, and then the series would have been 3-2 in their favor. That was their way. That was their action. But they did that without informing the Orlando Magic and without informing anybody else, for that matter. And so then that left the rest of the slate of games. That left players on those other teams to damn, there's no way we can go out there and play now. Like what are we doing? And so, there was a lot of frustration and emotion and tension, man. Already built up just from what's going on in society and the latest shooting in Wisconsin, and then everybody's blindsided by what just happened with the Bucks. And LeBron James was one of the ones, he was really frustrated. But his reasoning for that was because it's like, we didn't plan to do this. This wasn't an organized effort. So what are we doing? Like, if we're going to boycott, we have to be asking for something in return. Demands have to be met in order for us to go back to play. What do? We just go back and play? I mean, what does boycotting one game do, and then we just come back and play? Like, what is that setting? So that was his frustration, that it wasn't thought through. And now everybody is lumped into this, trying to figure out how they get themselves out. And, there's a lot of different personalities in the room, a lot of different players. And at first, LeBron James and the Lakers, they voted, nah, we didn't want to play. And he left the room. Clippers followed them. And leading up to the next day, which was Thursday, they finally got the Clippers and the Lakers on board. And it took a lot. Like, you have to commend Chris Paul, Andre Iguodala, Udonis Haslem, C.J. McCollum. Like, they worked around the clock, hours, getting very little sleep over that last 48-hour period, and try to get as many people on the same page as possible. And so I have to commend them for bringing the NBA basketball back.
Let's focus on the LA teams for a second here, Chris. Chris Haynes on the Rich Eisen Show. So let's start, obviously, with LeBron. How did it go from LeBron understanding the Bucks move, but a little bit chafed over the fact that it wasn't thought through with everybody and with a proper end game, to leaving the meeting, to agreeing after all to come back? Walk me through how does that all square?
Yeah, well, it's LeBron, since the NBA ever since the NBA suspended play March 11th, due to the coronavirus outbreak in the league, LeBron has been adamant that it's in everyone's best interest if we get this season underway, if safety protocols and what things permit. And so during that meeting, like I said, you have to remember that meeting was an hour, a couple hours from everybody canceling the games. And so there's still a state of shock from everybody. There's frustration, there's tension, like everything is built up in that room. And so then when you're hearing when you're hearing players give reasons of why people should leave this bubble, it was just a frustrating period. And I think, at a certain point, LeBron was just, he got kind of fed up in that moment. And, Udonis Haslem, he was the one that asked LeBron, like, what do you want to do? It's on you. You're the face of the league. It goes as you go. What you going to do? And LeBron, he was like, we're out. And, they walked out. And the rest of his teammates followed him. The only Laker that stayed was Dwight Howard. And then the Clippers did as well.
Well, which jumped out at me, Howard, because Howard was one of the guys who Instagrammed out before the bubble when Kyrie Irving was saying there shouldn't be a bubble, or at least threw that one out there. Howard was one of the guys who basically said, I agree. So he's the guy who actually stayed behind after the Lakers walked out. That one just kind of jumped out at me, and I'm just, again, wondering how it went from, anger boiling over, or at least wanting to just take a beat to getting LeBron and the Clippers unified. Do you know any more about that?
They were up all night. Players on both sides up all night talking. There was small meetings, marginal size meetings. Just guys just trying to organize and try to just figure out what's the best path moving forward. And not only that, just trying to figure out, like, what demands are we going to ask for right now, because we're in this mini hiatus period. But what it boiled down to was, I think, Rich, everybody was just heated. Like, there was so much going on that day. Everybody needed a good night's sleep, just to rest and, come back with a clear mind. And the next day, members of the executive committee reached out to Bron and Lou Williams of the Clippers and asked, are they in or out? Bron said they were in. And the funny thing about it was, kind of, the Lakers, for the meeting the next morning, they came 45 minutes late to the meeting. And so they held the meeting up. The meeting was supposed to happen at 11 a.m. It didn't start till around 11:45. And so I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what led to that, but after that 11 a.m. meeting, there was a meeting in the afternoon with the owners, players and owners, and LeBron was really forceful and stern in what he was asking for the owners. Telling them they need to do more to use their resources to affect change within the black community, to help alter laws, and so he went in and the owners said that they will do more. And so he left that meeting feeling like it was comfortable to play, and he felt good. So those were kind of all the elements that led to LeBron ultimately changing his mind.
Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports here. A few minutes left here on the Rich Eisen Show. I know you've got a lot of players finally being accessible after the last couple of days. I know you've got a lot going on, so I appreciate the time. Zubats, I'm sure you've heard of the Clippers flat out disputed one of the, I guess, more juicy nuggets in your report by pulling back the curtain on a lot of that tension that you mentioned on Wednesday night. Patrick Beverley, snapping at Michelle Roberts of the Players Association that he pays her salary and he can interrupt her whenever, I guess, he felt like it. What's your response to that?
Well, I stand by my reporting of what's in my story. There was a heated moment that happened at that point where Michelle Roberts was trying to explain the financial ramifications if everybody was to leave. And there was a portion of what she was saying that Pat didn't agree with. and he kept trying to interrupt her. And then that's when he said something along the lines of, no, she asked, no, that's how it is. She asked how do you want, will you allow me to speak, to finish my point? And he said something along the lines of, no, I pay your salary, we pay your salary, something along those lines. So I stand by my reporting on that. And, I think, I did find out that he went and spoke to her the next day. And Taylor Rooks reported that as well for Bleacher Report, that he spoke to her the next day and apologized. They're supposed to be in good standing as of right now. But yeah, that was a point during the meeting where things got a little heated, and Chris Paul had to stand up and say something, as well as Udonis Haslem.
Okay, last one for you, Chris. Especially perfect to answer this, since your information is airtight and buttoned up, and you know everything, or you're trying to get to know everything, and you beat, as you mentioned, the players to the bubble by a week. Can you give a little bit more, I guess, background on how the bubble might be affecting everybody? I mean, Paul George saying that he was depressed, anxious. That sitting there hermetically sealed up in an amusement park and resort for as long as the players have, while the rest of the country seems to be burning. I mean, literally in the state of California, but we're talking about the streets of Wisconsin, what's happening in our world, how that void is affecting the players mentally and might have led to a lot of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, just players, look, it has its obstacles when you're here and you're not around family, and, you can't do anything or go anywhere, So, that has its issues. And then you add, just the latest shooting of what I said, and you have to remember, like, players, they wanted to come over here because they wanted to keep the message alive. They wanted to keep the message on social justice. And I think when that latest shooting happened, there was a sense of helplessness, a sense of that, they're powerless. And, I equate it to just being, a cry for help, because they realized that, even though Black Lives Matter is painted across the court and everybody on campus is wearing Black Lives Matter shirt, is that to a large extent, even through all these movements, kneeling during the national anthem, is that Black Lives Matter still isn't mattering in certain places. And so there was hurt. The guys are dealing with anxiety issues, depression issues, and feeling guilt. There's a lot of guilt because they feel like, we're here and we're distracting the world. Because this is what it is, Rich. I'm sorry to be long-winded.
No, please. Go ahead.
But just for context, before the bubble was started, you remember there were protests going on all across the country, and this was the first time in my lifetime where I've seen massive protests featuring all walks of life, all different shades of colors, and that was beautiful. And you started to see cops being held accountable for unlawful shootings. That was rare. We rarely do see that, and so that was progress that was being made, and that was why some players were hesitant to come over, because they felt like it's going to take all the focus away from what has been a good movement right now. And I think with the latest one in Milwaukee, man, I think everything just hit ahead, and players who were dealing with just being isolated here in the first place, then you add that on top of it, it was just, I think that's all the things that led up to what happened on that historic day, which was Wednesday.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you giving us that information in the background. I knew you'd be able to provide it, and I appreciate the time. Are you there for the duration? Are you there till they hand out the Larry O.B.?
Yes, sir. That is the plan.
Wow. Okay. So look for my call. Look for my call. We'll be calling you again, Chris. And I'm glad to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're well, and we'll chat soon.
All right, Rich. Take care, my guy.
Right back at you. That's Chris Haynes. Must follow, must read. Again, go read that. I mean, it's just every word was, I was hanging on every single word of his article, which is, again, entitled Inside the Emotional 48 Hours That Saved the NBA's Bubble.